as interesting or funny or satirical or inventive, and just calling up and saying, I want to come in and show you something. And they would buy it. And I had a batting average that was about 95%. So I was pretty much selling script, which other artists illustrated, and I was on occasion illustrating other people's script, and then I was mostly writing my own scripts and illustrating them. So I don't think you could ask for more from someone who's feels like a writer artist, and that was my experience.
I could just add, if I may, that when he was first hired, he was hired as a writer. But it so frustrated him because to limit himself to writing the script that he would draw tiny little things that would just, give a hint of what was in his mind in terms of visuals to accompany this, the verbal.
If I can add to that, Mad Magazine was entirely visual. So I had an advantage as a writer. I actually storyboarded every script I did, and artists who received these storyboards, when I met them subsequently, would always say, keep writing those scripts. I love working on them, because if you don't get the layout, you have to read a script, and I'm not putting writers down, but a writer describes the scene. And very often it's impossible to draw because the writer does not visualize. He'll say, show a basketball court, and show both baskets, and show both teams preparing to play. And you've got, a 2-inch square in which to draw this. So the artists very often had to go, well, before the artist would get it, the editors would go over it, and they'd rewrite these things for the artist because they knew they couldn't draw them. But when they got my scripts, they were drawn. They were sketches. They were not in great detail. Sometimes they were just stick figures showing where they are. But I always put in the expressions on their faces, so that because I think the thing in cartooning that's paramount in telling stories is to convey the mood of the character as accurately as you possibly can, because it brings the scene to life. Otherwise, you just have mannequins standing there with talking balloons over their heads. So I think my scripts not only helped the artists that they were given to, but they helped me sometimes.
Well, what ultimately happened was that they would see his storyboards, and they would see his slightly repressed little sketches because he couldn't help himself. And finally, I can't remember now who said what to Bill Gaines, but hey, why are we using this guy as a writer? He's an artist too, and he's doing a better job of illustrating his writing than the people we're giving it to. So, then he became both writer and artist for Mad.
That was my big break. No, actually, Nick Meglin.
Hi, I have a couple more questions. You say that you didn't work with these people. Did you ever work in an office together with the writers? Because it really seemed like Mad Magazine was a cohesive group.
I never worked as a writer with other writers. We were all pretty much on our own.
In your own houses and stuff?
Yeah, in our own houses, studios, what have you. The only two writers that I know who worked together a good deal were Siegel and Hart, Stan Hart and Larry Siegel. Well, they worked well together. So they worked so well together. They on one of the Mad trips to San Juan, Puerto Rico, we wondered what happened to Larry and Stan, because for 2 weeks no one ever saw them. And when they came out, we found out that they had written the Mad Show, which was an off-Broadway hit for a number of years. And they just holed up in the hotel and wrote this show.
It's not surprising that you asked that question, because there's a mythology around Mad Magazine that was promoted by Bill Gaines and just the whole team, which was that they were a team, and that they were, the usual bunch of idiots, or the madman or whatever. But in fact, what they were individual writers and artists, or writer-artists, in their studios scattered all over New York, the New York area, who would deliver their work and go away.
Right.
So did you get contracts like for a year? I mean, you were a freelancer. Did you get a contract with them, or were you paid on assignments? And as a freelancer myself, could you survive just working for Mad?
I was lucky in that Mad desperately needed script, because we ate a lot of it up all the time, and you had to stay on top of things. And I had entree, so I could call up on the phone and say, I have an idea to do such and such. How about it? And either I'd get a yes or a no, and then I knew how to do it, and it was almost never changed or rejected. But for some people, it was probably more difficult, and I don't know. I think I lost a part of your question.
You survived as a writer for Mad Magazine.
Oh yeah, I could, because they bought almost everything I did. That's the only way I could do it. If 50% of my work was rejected, I'd have to go looking for work the other 50% of the time, because it never paid that much.
And part of Al's business-like ways was to latch onto an idea like snappy answers to stupid questions, or mad inventions, or, of course, the greatest of them all, the fold-in. And they were sinecures for him for his whole lifetime with Mad.
Yes, that I forgot about that, and that's critical, really. Mad would very often, if they liked a feature, for example, something that says, "Don't you hate Christmas?" and then it would show, a little kid crying because there are 4 Santa Clauses at a corner, on a corner street, every corner. And so you'd say, "Don't you hate Christmas?" when you're taking your child out to see Santa Claus, and there are 4 of them. And you could milk that kind of a thing and say, "Don't you hate teachers who do such and such about homework and don't do and give you a hard time?"
Dennis with hairy arms was one of yours, I think.
Well, okay, you had to bring that up. No, so you could. I have to use the word milk because people seem to enjoy it, just the way Dave Berg did a feature called "The Lighter Side of." It would be the lighter side of traffic, the lighter side of getting your head knocked off.
College life, the lighter side of college life. What was the inspiration for your fold-in feature, back cover feature, which was...
For those of you who've heard this before, please pretend you're somewhere else. But a mad writer is constantly looking for material. I mean, you're looking for it anywhere you can. you surround yourself with books and magazines and try to figure out something you can do with any of this stuff. Does it strike you? And one day I was looking at a bunch of magazines that I had. I somehow accidentally acquired Playboy magazine. I think the cat dragged it in, but I did actually sell cartoons to Playboy, so I had a legitimate reason. And of course, Playboy had this fancy, full-color, glossy fold-out. And then I remembered that I once saw the same thing, a similar thing, in Life magazine and National Geographic, and even once in Sports Illustrated. I think they showed a new stadium, and it was full-color, glossy, fold-out, and so you could see the whole stadium. And I thought, what would Mad do? We should have something similar. Well, Mad was a cheap little magazine, 25 cents, printed on newsprint, all black and white, except for the front and back covers. I said, Mad has to do a cheap, cheesy fold-in. Just go the other way. The way I did with Superman. I went the other way. And at that time, there was something in the news about Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton that they were going to, that they were romancing, and Eddie Fisher was going to be left in the cold, or had already been left in the cold. And so I thought, maybe I'll do something with them. And I came up with a very, very simple idea, almost something that a little kid would do. I had Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor in an embrace. And then I had a crowd of people and photographers and reporters. And there was a handsome young guy over on the right side. And the heading was something like, after Elizabeth Taylor, words to the effect of, that implied after Elizabeth Taylor gets tired of Burton, who's going to be next? And when you folded it in, it's the handsome young man winds up kissing Elizabeth Taylor, and Burton is out of the picture. So, very, very simple, but it was audience participation, which I think is always popular. People like to be a part of things, which is why the crossword puzzle has survived forever. And so I did one. It's a one-time gag. It was apparently good, nice comments, and I forgot about it. And next thing I know, I'm sitting minding my own business up in the Mad office one day, and the editor comes to me and says, "When are you going to do another fold-in?" I said, "I don't have another fold-in. This is it." I mean, so he says, "You got to do another fold-in." The election was on at that time, and it was Goldwater between Goldwater and Rockefeller, and I decided I could do a fold-in on those two guys, and I did.
But 411 or 12 now? He's always doing one, so.
I've done about 415 or so. I don't know. Yeah, I've done about 415. Every issue of Mad since 1964, except 3 issues. And the reason that I was bumped on these 3 issues is every now and then Mad came up with a backward-forward magazine. They would have the front cover would be Mad, and then they would do a takeoff on Popular Mechanics or something like that on the back of it and go the other way. So they didn't have room for my fold-in on the back inside cover. So I'd get kicked out.
Shall we call it a night?
Thank you so much, Mary Lou Wiseman and Al Jaffee. They're going to stick around. You're welcome to come on up. We're going to take 2 seconds to move them off the stage, but if you can line up behind me through these stacks, that would be great. Thank you all for coming tonight. You can find out upcoming events at strandbooks.com.